Hi, and welcome to the Ultimate Frontline Leadership Training Podcast. My name is Mike Quinn, and I'm your host. Today we're going to be talking about increasing productivity. Now, if you've worked in the frontline industries at all in the last few decades, you'd know that training is a four-letter word. Everything is on a need-to-know basis, and if you don't ask, you don't need to know. Now, this wasn't always the case. It used to be that working in the frontline industries paid minimum wage, and in the 70s and 80s, that was much less than $5 an hour. Now, labor was cheap, but many large companies still trained managers in people skills to reduce turnover and exposure to lawsuits from sexual harassment, wrongful termination, illegal labor practices, unions, and a whole lot more. But somewhere during the 90s, the greed of that decade saw the canceling of person-to-person training as it was considered too costly. So a lot of the large companies made video training tapes and had employees watch these during onboarding. Now, it didn't take long for someone to say, hey, these tapes work great. Let's train everyone this way, managers included. The common thinking was then that person-to-person training was too expensive and provided limited returns on investment. So many companies stopped training managers in people skills too. Now, for the past 3 decades, people skill training for managers was limited to once or twice per year seminars and the obligatory videotapes. Helpful, but not a complete solution at all. Now, fast forward to today, and we see minimum wages have increased to over $10 an hour in many places, and as much as $14 per hour in the more populous locations, and at larger companies. And if you want to attract the best of these employees, you would offer them more. The pressure now is for the employee to raise their productivity to be worth that extra money. Managers are trained to look for hourly sales and compare it to labor forecasts or scheduled labor in order to figure out if they're staffed correctly. Productivity is now the buzzword in most frontline shops today. So why aren't companies spending money on managers' people skills in order to increase productivity and retain key personnel? I think they will. Sooner or later, the leadership of companies will figure out that employees are happiest and most productive when they're well trained and happy. We all know the saying, knowledge is power, and that's especially true when a person feels their power. They ultimately don't want to lose it, so they will usually stay in the job they're at longer. I remember having some conversations with some staff, and they told me they would like to work for another company, but they currently have so much seniority and their hours are so great, and they wouldn't get this at the new company, so they stayed at the company they weren't really that happy with. So as you can see, when people stay at a company, they're usually rewarded with perks that translate into employee-saving barriers to exit. This is better hours, their wages are better, they have better sections, in restaurants, or they have better jobs. So they tend to stay in those jobs much longer because they like those perks. Well, if you go the extra mile and start training them better and treating them better and rewarding their performance, then you're going to see them be happier and perform even higher. So their productivity rates are going to increase. And, well, I recently went back to one of the locations I previously managed, and some of the people that said they would like to work at a different place are now no longer there. So all those benefits or those barriers to exit were not sufficient enough to keep them from finding a better job someplace else. So ignoring training and ignoring rewards is to your detriment. You're going to be turning over employees, and you're just going to keep training them how to do their jobs, and then they're going to leave, and you're going to barely train somebody else, and they're going to leave. It's just going to be a vicious cycle of never having properly trained and skilled workers in your unit. So you would think the 3 key areas upper management needs to focus on today will be training, appreciation, and compensation. Now, the compensation part is being forced on many companies now with higher and higher minimum wages. So all that's left for the paradigm to shift back to the way it was when managers got a mentor to train them in personal skills is training and appreciation. Tap into these 2 areas and you'll see your turnover decrease, which logically means your team, the one that stays in their jobs longer, will be better at what they do, increasing their productivity, and one would think earning upper management some nice bonuses and career longevity for themselves. So if you want to get in on the ground floor of a great renaissance in the frontline industries, where the pay is good, the training is great, and the appreciation is plentiful, then stop by here and listen to a video every day. Start your career now, before everyone else gets the memo and you have to compete with all these new people flocking to the front lines for a great career. If you don't want to or can't get back to school for a degree, this is the place to be. You don't have to quit your job, go back to school, or do any drastic changes to your lifestyle at the moment. Just watch these free videos and put them into practice in your job today. Soon you'll start to see some real differences in your workplace as other people react to your new professional direction. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to talking with you next week.